Isn't that cool? Look at the early rear motor mount. It's pretty safe to say that's the first time this motor's been out of that car. And I've never had one kick my ass like that before. My name is Tim Mings, and I restore Honda N600s and Z600s for a living. I'm the only full-time Honda 600 mechanic in the world. I've been a Honda guy my whole life. Yeah, I started helping my father fix them just after school myself and on the weekends, and that's how I got my first car. Was I got a broken one and fixed it. Kids in high school, their cars are usually broken. Mine was never broken. It said Honda right on it. The N600's just a funny little car. It's kind of a nice progression from motorcycles to cars. There's more Honda 600s laying around than you would imagine. It's not a rare car at all. What's rare is to see one that starts and drives and goes down the road under its own power. I started out in 1995 just fixing Honda 600 cars exclusively. I was driving one of my vintage cars to a swap meet, and I saw a Honda 600 come in on a trailer, and from a distance it just looked like a regular old Honda 600. I've kind of seen most of them now, so it's no big deal. And a friend of mine was there, and he called me and said, "You need to go see this car." And I went and saw it, and I realized it was an early car. I didn't know how early, and the guy wanted X amount of dollars for it. Of course, he didn't know what number it was in, but it had one of the hubcaps with it, and the hubcaps are kind of unusual. So I asked if he had all 4 hubcaps. He said yes, and I said, okay. But everything is well worn and weathered from having sitting around neglected for who knows how long before I got it. It took literally 2 or 3 years before I scraped the stuff off the serial number to see that it was serial number 1. 1967 Honda N600s, 50 of them were manufactured serial number 1 through serial number 50, and they were brought here to see if it was indeed feasible to sell such a small car in the great big country of America. What makes this Honda serial number 1 special and kind of a different restoration, it all comes down to the serial number, which is 1.
Well, the American auto industry in the late 60s and 70s was just, I mean, it was going crazy.
The kinds of vehicles that were most popular in America were really the largest.
Well, they were making big V8-powered rear-drive cars.
Honda wanted to expand out of Japan, and they could have gone anywhere, but they knew that to be number 1 in the world, they had to first be number 1 in America.
The N600 absolutely represents what was going on in the mid-60s and kind of indicated a cultural change that was going on as well.
We're at the Japanese Classic Car Show, the 11th annual in Long Beach, California. This is a pretty unique show. It's open to pre-1985 Japanese cars. We're showing the Serial 1 Honda N600 in its unrestored condition. We made the announcement that this car will be brought back there next year, restored. It's a lot of work to be done in a year, but I think I'm up to the task. Okay, I got it. Still good. How long do you let something like that sit around that's broken? Now, half full of dirt when I got it, so it sat around forever, up in a desert, looks like. If it was in a large metropolitan area, chances are it doesn't make sense to keep it, something like that. It's broken, so it would get thrown away. It's just fortunate that it didn't.
Well, Honda got its start here, like a lot of companies from Japan did. It started with motorcycles.
Mr. Honda founded Honda Motor in 1948.
After World War II, he started to adapt generator engines to power bicycles.
In 1946, he had the first prototype of the motorcycle where he took a bicycle and a surplus generator motor and attached that together. It was pretty crude. He had a gas tank made out of a hot water bottle.
And when he ran out of available generator engines, he started making his own.
And then by 48, he was in business.
Motorcycles in 1950s America were kind of edgy. You know, if you were riding a motorcycle in those days, you were kind of on the outside, a bit of an outlaw. Well, certainly Honda didn't want that. They wanted to make the motorcycle mainstream.
completely turned the thinking about motorcycles upside down. You meet the nicest people on a Honda, that was their advertising pitch. And all of a sudden, motorcycles were friendly. All of a sudden, they were approachable.
Well, it's interesting to go from a motorcycle company to actually a car company. They were building great engines. They built great engines for their motorcycles. And the N600 is a car that's a lot like a four-wheel motorcycle in a way. And they went from there.
Today we disassembled the serial number 1 car, and next up is a few little more details to remove. Then it gets on a dolly and goes to the paint and body shop.
Now this car's got so many areas that are, I don't know if it's glue or some type of adhesive holding panels together. There's just a lot of areas that I feel that hand stripping was the right way to go with this.
John Carambia is just obsessive because he's absolutely a perfectionist. There's nobody that does it better than John Carambia.
The block sanding is the whole key to making the final product really look correct. If you have rough bodywork, you can come in and block sand it and make it look like the bodywork's perfect underneath. To duplicate that, to the best of my ability and make it at least as good as it was when it was new, if not even a little bit better.
I get 2 scoops. My whole family's always been into Hondas, from my uncle working at a dealership in 1960 till today. We're still all own Honda products and fix them and work them and ride on them and race them.
Tim grew up in that little 600. Well, he was born in it more or less, but he knew this was it for him.
My dad started the whole thing with the Honda cars, working as a second job after normal work. Well, when I first broke the news to him, he was a little reluctant to believe it until he came and saw it with his own eyes. Just had that Mings grin. We did 3 restorations together, proper concourse-style restorations.
Can't say it was too much fun. It was work.
I enjoyed it. You got to spend a lot of time with my dad fixing stuff and making it go from junk to something that goes down the road. Now tell the best part.
Oh, no, I'm not going to tell that
Go
part.
ahead.
No,
It's the best part.
No,
They'll
no.
love this part.
No.
Because they won't believe me if I say it.
Well, I met Tim because I needed some wheel bearings. Isn't that what it was?
Axle boots.
Axle boots, sorry. Somebody had given me his name. I called up Tim. I said, hello, I have this kind of a car and I need this kind of a part. And he said, I have the largest supply of Honda 600 parts in the country.
The guy who gave me his name said, yeah, talk to his father because the son's an ass.
My first impression of Kathleen when she came in was she's too cute to be driving a car like this and hanging around with me. I asked Kathleen Walker out to go slick track racing.
I hadn't mentioned this to Tim, but I'd been looking online for a toy version of my car. He shows up at my door, not knowing any of this, with a toy of my car in the same color at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
I was flabbergasted. And here it is, my victory trophy.
Without Honda, I would not have Kathleen Walker as my wife, with no doubt about it. While the body's getting painted, I'll be working on the sub-assemblies. After all this time of waiting, it's somewhat trepidation going into the unknown. This is a pretty special car. Now that is an absolute miracle. Going where nobody's gone before since 1967. A lot of peculiar features I'm sure we're going to discover. Early, weird little features on it that separate it from the regular 1970 to 72 models. This is a little gross. This is a little rusted together. Very unusual. This is a unique, different flywheel. There's a special tool required to get that off that I've never seen before, so I'm gonna have to fake it. See if this works out for me. So the flywheel on this, one of the first 50 engines is essentially an N360 designed, and they changed it after the first 50 to the more traditional version. This is the one that fits all the regular cars. This one is different. Never seen that before. There you go, how about that? Nothing argues with the persuader. Everything is just a little little different. It's interesting to see when Honda changed stuff, they always changed it for a reason. They just made it better, because that's what they do. It's a full roller bearing crankshaft, stuff that was only found in high-end sports cars of the day. It's a very high performance piece. You know, all Honda motorcycles had that, but in a car, pretty unusual to have that kind of crankshaft. The Honda N600 engine is a true masterpiece in technology. It led the way to the Civic in that it just proved that Honda is capable of making reliable, economical little cars.
If you had known what would happen to the price of gasoline, would you have bought the car you drive now?
I happened to live through the 1973 and 1974 gas crisis, and it markedly changed what was going on in the country.
They were ready when the gas crisis hit America in 1973.
There were gas lines, you got gas every other day.
All of a sudden, gigantic 9 mile to the gallon, 8, 7 mile to the gallon vehicles weren't all that enticing to people. They wanted something rational.
Of course, history shows that this is the way to go, right? A lot of the newer cars are this size, they're front-wheel drive. This really kind of set the stage for the future about 50 years in advance.
When America set the EPA standards, said to the American automotive manufacturers, you need to meet these emission standards by this date. And they all sort of threw their hands up in the air like, this is impossible, we can't do it. Mr. Honda, ever the sort of opportunist and optimist, said, I'm gonna take that on, I can do that. One of the American auto companies said, that's fine. It's easy to do that with a little sort of toy engine. I'll show you. He got a big muscle American car at the time. I think it was probably like a V8 or something crazy like that. Shipped it over to Japan, had his engineers do their magic, and then they sent it back to the EPA, and it passed all the tests.
Suddenly, vehicles that most Americans wouldn't have considered before the fuel crisis hit were very, very popular.
Probably have the largest collection of N600 memorabilia in the country. It's been a long effort of buying out old dealerships' inventory and always on the internet searching for stuff.
Anything that is a part that he's never seen before is worth a fortune to him.
A guy on Instagram posts a picture of this. It says, guess the special tool. And I just happened to come across it and I said, that's a Honda N600 factory engine stand. What do I win? Do I get to buy it? So I got to purchase that lovely engine stand. So on the lift table here, we have the greater percentage of the serial number 1 car. As you can see, everything's pretty gross looking right now. We're gonna lovingly massage every little piece back to the way it was. All sorts of little detail stuff, like the body plugs just need to be cleaned and tidied up. There's a big challenge here is the dashboard assembly. As you can see, it's in bad shape, but I've fixed worse. We can make this one look like new again. So basically, there's just a whole bunch of hand time and research to make sure that all the finishes are correct and everything is back to within spec so it works like it did when it was new again. This brand recognition is what carries over from the 600. Really opened the gates for Honda automobiles in America. Without the 600, no Honda Civic. No Honda Civic, no Type R today. When Honda sets their eye on something, everybody else pays attention.
I think Honda's motto, the power of dreams, speaks volumes, that these are vehicles that kind of push the limits.
I think Honda vehicles are very rational vehicles, and yet they're fun. And maybe they're fun because they're so rational. You know, they're expressive to drive. They're so well engineered that they almost can't not be fun to drive.
The power of dreams, it's emotional actually when you think about it.
That's what makes them different than even the competitors today.
You see throughout Honda's history, they tried things. Maybe they worked, maybe they didn't. They took a little break, went back to the drawing board, and then they came back with something else.
Some things may not go over real well, not everything does, but you learn from your mistake and you go on. Judging from Honda's longevity, they haven't made that many mistakes.
Everybody's thinking that it's just me that's restoring this car, and it's not. I can't do it without the team that I got in place. It's going to be extremely challenging to restore this car in the timeline that we've got set aside, so we'll see.
I've been doing powder coating for the last a little over 20 years. You can't find a better quality coating than powder coating. I've worked with Tim for years. He's been a great customer, a great friend. He's sent over a lot of his friends to me, and we have a very good relationship.
No one will ever see that part again, but if it's restored like it was new, this is going to be here in another 50 years for people to see.
Me and my dad decided to open an upholstery shop. We've been in business for 22 years. My process on restoring Serial 1, I got the fabric from Oregon, saw some pictures of it, and I had partial template on the seats that I can work off, and then the rest I just, did my own. But this is way better than nothing, Makes my work easier. I believe Tim comes to me because I've been working with him for over 10 years.
We are El Monte Plating, and we have been here doing business, a family business, for 70 years. First process is always the cleanings and the stripping of the old plating, which could be paint or oil, grease, whatever it's got on there, we've got to clean the part thoroughly first. And then after we get it clean, we're ready to start the metal prep. If it's taken care of properly, if it's waxed indoors, it will last another 50 years.
Really rising to the occasion to make this all happen.
Tim's pretty anxious about the deadline because he really wants the car to have its debut at JCCS. There's a couple of things that are literally in the mail.
Use stuff a lot, just buying cars that are beyond saving and parting them out for the good bits. Normally, a car like this is parts at best. This is junk. But what makes this car special is this is an automatic transmission N600, which Honda in 1969 brought 3 of them over. It was a long road for Honda to make an automatic transmission any good, as it was with most Japanese manufacturers. But now, the best transmissions you could get are as a Honda-matic transmission. I restored one for the American Honda Museum, the red one that's in Marysville. Bill Colford has the other one in San Diego. This one's been missing for 40+ years. And I found it in a wrecking yard 10 miles aside of Fort Smith, Arkansas, just in Oklahoma. This is number 46, and it serves as a template for reassembly on the number 1 car. Nice to have one that hasn't been disassembled to double check how everything goes back together right. Since last time we got all the machine work back for the number 1 engine, all we're waiting on at this point is new gaskets. The hardest part of this is the amount of handwork that goes into getting this finished. It doesn't look like it's been restored. It looks like it was when it was brand new in 1967. There's lots of little subtle differences in this whole assembly. This is the heater, which is the fan housing, and there's a handle inside. It says heater push. You push it, that goes in, and that opens these baffles that then lets the hot air from the motor go into the car via some rubber ducts. We're gonna put some gas in it and see if we can make it breathe again for the first time in almost 50 years. A lot of time went into cleaning the aluminum to get this finish on it, a trade secret that we don't let out. It's very possible there's 100 hours in this, sure. When you're having fun, you don't keep track. Like I said, this isn't the most high-tech thing, but let's see what we got. A little choke. Oh, some of the old timers would turn the ignition on. Let's give it some spark. There it goes. Okay, take 2, ready? Here we go. Sounds pretty good, huh? It looks like new and it sounds like new. That's what we're shooting for here. For the very first one, lives again. So everybody got to hear that. There's no date on this, is there? Well, this is an undated document from Mr. Soichiro Honda, probably 1969. I'm 34 now, so I've probably had this for 40 years. You can just kind of see how the evolution of the Serial 1 car, how the whole N600 in general, how it was evolving even as Mr. Honda himself was sending this. Essentially, they're testing the water to see who would be interested in selling this car.
Mr. Honda was really born with the challenging spirit, and throughout his life, he took a lot of risks and tried to do things that hadn't been done before.
It's give the public what the public wants. Give them a product that they'll buy, that you can sell.
didn't go along with the pack necessarily, didn't follow other Japanese automakers.
Really a serial innovator.
Unstoppable, going to make a dent in the universe kind of guy.
The thing that we need to remember about Mr. Honda is, first and foremost, he was a racer. He always said, without racing, there is no Honda.
The mainline production stuff was just a way to feed the racing habit. I started racing Honda motorcycles 15 years ago, and that's the only thing to ride as far as I'm concerned. There's no first place up there, so yeah, those are just there because they look cool, that's all. I've raced my motorcycles on just about every track in America.
He innovated and innovated and innovated.
He should be a hero of the world. He's a hero of anybody that drives a car.
This is the kind of person who, he didn't really care what others thought. You know, he would even invite his competitors in to look at his manufacturing because he didn't have anything to hide. He's like, if you copy me, that's flattering. I don't care. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do.
I really don't like to work with a deadline because that puts a lot of pressure. Waiting for John to finish the paint and body on the #1 car, it's really causing me some anxiety. I've done just about all the subcomponent work I can do, and until John comes through, everything's kind of at a standstill right now. I know you won't put that in there, because it's when you're dealing with artistic types like that, you got to know that going in. So it'll be ready when it's ready and not before. And that's not a unique John Carambia situation. That's people that have that sort of artistic ability and credibility and just integrity. They're going to do it the way it needs to be done, and that's that.
At some point, that car was picked up with some kind of cables or straps. So the rockers had 4 spots that were all pushed in and had to get in there and pull all them out. You know, when the car first came to me, you know, this car was all green. If you start looking at chips in the paint, you can see that it had been repainted.
And it was a known Honda color, ceramic white. And then John was able to match it.
They color matched the color to interior panel inside the door. The chips underneath that were coming up white, that was not a primer or anything, that was actually the original color. Yeah, he's like, I'm not gonna get this thing done, John, come on. I'm like, hey, I'm doing the best I can.
This car deserves to have the very best treatment possible.
I'm not totally finished yet. I still got to color sand and rub these parts, and I have the hood left to do still, but feeling really good. What makes a really true craftsman is having a uniqueness to paying attention to details. And Tim pays attention to details.
John Carambia is a true artist. You can't find a flaw in this paint job. I can't say enough about his work. It's incredible. But you can see we got the car back from paint prison. The paint job is perfection. This is exactly the way it would have been when it was brand new.
Hey, Tim, I got a hood.
Nice. Goes the other way, though.
I know.
I wish I had a little more time to make this to go together, because I'm working 7 days a week on it now. Half days are 12-hour days.
So it'll be a relief when it's over. Yeah, and he'll sleep.
It's going to be very close. Putting the windshield in it and the headlights in it, starts to get its little face back. So you get to see his little personality coming back out.
It's starting to look like a car.
It's adorable, isn't it? You just want to cuddle with it. It's pretty cool. As a kid, I could never put model kits together. Never had the patience, but this is okay. It's wearing on me. Starting to, yeah. The whole experience is almost surreal. You know, this has been my life for the last year. Well, we want to fire it up? You want to hear it run? Are we ready for that? Got lucky on that one, huh? They're picking up the car tomorrow, and they're still waiting on the master cylinder to finish the brake system. I don't know what time I'm going to get it tomorrow morning. Right now, that's the last piece needed for the puzzle. At 9 a.m. this morning, we're gonna do the world premiere of the 1967 Honda N600 serial number 1. Beside myself with anticipation. You know, this is what I do all the time, and I still get, when it's finished, I go, huh, I did that. But to say I did that, it's not true. It's Bill Colford did that, and Rogelio did that, and John Carambia did that.
I think since the day he discovered the serial number, it's just sort of grown, the importance of it. And he had some offers to restore it for a private collector. And ultimately, he just said, no, you know what? That's not where it belongs. People should see it. It should be in the museum. So it's more about the car to him than it is about him.
You ready?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see it.
Here we go.
All right.
With the restoration of this car, we're preserving a piece of not only Honda history, but automotive history in general. Mr. Honda would be proud of this.
My name is Leslie Kendall. I'm the chief curator of the Petersen Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. We get to be the caretakers of this very first Honda N600.
Without that car, we might not be having this conversation.
It was the car that really got Honda started here in the United States.
Well, I think the N600 was the absolute precursor of the Civic. You know, the Civic is such a marvelous car with, you know, so many great generations. It all came out of this N600.
If Mr. Honda were around today, I think he would probably smile. I think he would be pleased. But I do think he would ask, what's next?
Early Japanese cars are getting their due. People are finally recognizing how central they are to our motoring landscape. 50 years ago, America didn't look like it does today, and maybe that's not a bad thing.
You know, this has been my life for the last year. The whole experience is almost surreal. Yeah, my folks being here, kind of like, that's a nice feeling. It's, you know, it's full circle. This is the defining moment of my career. I'm getting a little emotional.